Okay, this is gonna be a more positive video, so people who get offended by my negative takes are gonna be happy. Yeah. But no, seriously. In this video I wanna talk about two games that really sucked, that in my opinion never got a sequel. And the first one is Metal Gear Rising. Metal Gear Rising, that came out at this point 11 years ago. Jeez, since yesterday it came out. And also 1 year later on PC. Yeah, time really flies. Jesus. But yeah, this game was really something at the time. This was one of the last games I was really fucking hyped for. Like, I bought it on day one in the game store, so I went there because I was waiting for this game for a long time. And granted, this game was probably never supposed to come out. It only did because Hideo Kojima actually salvaged the concept and brought it to Platinum so they could develop their own version. Because the production in-house at Kojima Productions was not making any real progress with this game, so it was supposed to be cancelled. But then no, Kojima said let's give it to Platinum to salvage it and see what they can do. And they actually pulled it off, because they developed the game in a little more than a year, I think. Granted, it shows, because you can tell it's quite unpolished and unfinished in some ways. You know, like, in a way it feels similar to Ninja Gaiden 2 on Xbox 360. Because you can tell the game wasn't finished either, but it was still an overall good game with some good ideas and a gameplay that felt fun and rewarding. And this one is the same, even though a little bit less complex in terms of combat, because the combat in this game, you can tell it was made by Platinum, but it's not as in-depth as I don't know, let's say a Bayonetta, for example. And in fact, they do reuse some of Bayonetta's mechanics in this game. From what I remember, mostly the dodge offset, which allows you to keep your combo going even after you dodge, so you don't have to start it over. And the big selling point of this game was definitely the whole you can cut everything. But that was in the original pitch. In the original pitch, when the game was called Metal Gear Solid Rising, the biggest promise from the devs was that you actually cut everything in the game. But of course, it kind of fell off, because if you can cut everything, you can't really like finish a level, because what if you cut a ladder that you have to climb? How are you gonna finish the level? So some little monikers like that probably didn't allow them to go on with their full vision. So when Platinum took over, they kept, for the most part, the whole cut everything, because you can cut most of the environment, just not a few structures that are actually necessary for progression. I think it's totally fine. I don't hold it against the game, for sure. That's common sense. It will be a dumb decision for the devs to allow you to soft lock yourself out of competition. And so, like I said, the combat is good overall. It's simple, just not as in depth as Platinum's previous games or other games like Devil May Cry. There's combos, like light attacks, heavy attacks. Then there is a store where you can actually purchase your moves. that you unlock after each level, and then you can buy those moves with the credits you collect. I mean, structure-wise, is very similar to every other action game. Its peculiarities are the whole cut everything, and the way you can actually block attacks, because in this game there's no like regular block. You have to parry each single attack an enemy performs. So if an enemy like it deals a 3-hit combo, you will have to parry 3 single hits. And this is something that definitely made the game less accessible to the masses, because like the parry is not really a mechanic that how can I say, sits well with the casual player, I think. In comparison to just pressing a button and being able to block everything, of course, that's gonna be more difficult, and casual players are not gonna probably be willing to learn. So that definitely made the game less commercial in this sense. The problem with this concept, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the concept itself of pairing something. The problem is that the game had a really bad camera that always kept moving, and also was too close to the character. So you found yourself having to block attacks coming from different directions, but the camera kept moving. And in a game where your defense depends also on the position you have on the screen, because you have to input directional inputs for your block, for your parry. Having a camera that's always on the move, it makes blocking actually pretty difficult, especially when there's more than one enemy on screen. So that was definitely probably the biggest flaw the game had, other than it being quite short and a bit unfinished, because you can tell after the 5th level, I think. I don't remember which one. I think it's the 5th level. Actually, the 4th level. The one after you kill Sundowner. You can tell they ran out of budget, because for the next level they recycled the previous level when you arrive at World Marshal's headquarters, which is the one in Denver, Colorado. So you go through the city like in reverse from where you came from. And then after that the game is pretty much over, because after that level there's the Sam boss fight, and then there's the last level. The game is very short. It's very replayable, but it's also very short. And that's where a sequel will have come in handy, in my opinion. Would have been a good thing to flesh out the mechanics more. Stuff like the secondary weapons, for example, they weren't really well implemented, in my opinion. Mostly because they really didn't have many moves, other than the baton. No, how it's called, the staff. Sorry, Mistral's weapon. Other than that, the other two really didn't have many moves, because there's only 3 secondary weapons from bosses, and there is different blades, but those are just a reskin for your main weapon. So they definitely could have improved on the secondary weapons. Also because to pick, like, to use them, you had to stop completely and select them with the menu, and that was pretty jank overall. So there were quite a lot of things that could have been improved in an eventual sequel, which never happened, of course. because then Kojima left Konami, and Konami themselves, I guess, didn't think people wanted a sequel for this game, a sequel to this game. I don't know what happened. Maybe behind the scenes, there was something. There were some plans, some talks between Konami and Platinum, but they never materialized because, like we know, the game never got a sequel, and it's a fucking shame. Like I said, it's really a shame. One of the biggest bummers in gaming, in my opinion. The Metal Gear Rising never got a sequel. So we are now, more than 10 years later, with no sequel. I guess that's life. But this game has such a great potential for improvement. Quite a few things needed could have been improved upon in an eventual sequel. And also the story, because I mean the story kind of ends up on a cliffhanger. With Raiden really not knowing what he's gonna do, where he's gonna go. For sure. So I mean, it would have been nice to see an actual sequel, to see where the story was gonna go, and also how the gameplay, what direction the gameplay was gonna go, and also all the improvements. But yeah, sadly, fate didn't work this way this time.
This would appear to be the UG maintenance area. You should find a terminal there. Something they use to upload mission parameters to the UGs.
And something I can use to access the lab's main server?
Perhaps. But first you need to take a dump.
What?
A dump? A digital optical output mounted proxy.
And the next game I want to talk about is Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, though not the main game, but Blood Dragon, which was the DLC expansion, which was released also around 2013, I think. 2014, 2013. But yeah, it was still 10 years ago. Yeah, in a way it feels like 10 years ago was the last time where games were allowed to feel games and fun, and poke fun at everything, not take themselves too seriously, but not even be complete snooze fests that they are too depressing. So they had a good in-between, a good balance, especially Metal Gear Rising, which had moments, more serious moments and more goofy fun moments. Meanwhile, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is probably leans on more on the goofiness, due to its big amount of references to other franchises. But yeah, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. You can call this game pretty much you could call it an expansion, a mod, probably. Yeah, a mod, because it's pretty much a mod, a Far Cry 3, an official Far Cry 3 mod released by Ubisoft. The map is, I think if I remember correctly, they use a portion of Far Cry 3 Originals map as the setting for Blood Dragon. Then there's everything else. The graphics are the same, it's just that the style, it's completely different. They changed the environment, they changed the enemies, the colors, the backgrounds, and the protagonists and all that stuff, and of course the story. But overall, the mechanics are some of the mechanics remain the same. The core gameplay is the same in Blood Dragon as Far Cry 3, except the game has lost completely every little bit of simulation focused aspects in its gameplay. So, like for example, there's not gonna be fall damage in Blood Dragon, or I think you can run only for a short amount of time in Far Cry 3 Original, while in Blood Dragon you have infinite stamina, and so on. There's no fall damage, like I said. So all those aspects that will make the game less fun, actually more tedious, are pretty much removed. So it's basically a very arcade experience where you play as a cyborg. So you are definitely more resilient than the main protagonist in Far Cry 3. And the game is pretty much a big reference to 80s and 90s movies. You can tell by the intro alone that they took inspiration from Terminator, Predator, Aliens, and all that stuff. And it works well. It works well because the sense of humor, they managed to recreate the sense of humor that you could see in those movies through the writing, the jokes, relatively well, I have to say. It really feels like you're back in the 80s while you're playing this game. Rusty cum buckets.
Rex, are you doing okay after that EMP surge?
Good as new, Doc. There's no challenge I can't beat.
I don't know, Rex. I'm pretty unstoppable in the Bishop of Battle.
Doc, you play video games?
Yes, Rex. Video games are a proven coping mechanism, like any hobby. They've been shown to improve hand-eye coordination, problem-solving, social interaction, and self-confidence. And no studies have managed to prove a correlation between video games and violence. Frankly, anyone who thinks games are bad for you is a fucking idiot.
Whoa.
No, Rex. FUCK stands for failing to understand our capacity for kindness. It's an acronym. Though I suppose this isn't a game anymore, is it?
So, I mean, the target audience is definitely people like me. People who were born in the 80s, 90s. So, like, straight white males. So that's why probably Ubisoft never decided to make a sequel. I guess. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the reasons why they never made a sequel. I know they reused the moniker Blood Dragon for a DLC for Trials. And then they announced a shitty anime last year, I think, which was inspired by Blood Dragon, but it had nothing to do with Blood Dragon. So they definitely reused the game. The game's name, because it has some clout, but they never thought about developing a sequel, which is really a shame, because it didn't. I mean, you can tell it didn't really have a big budget. It was just like an expansion, a DLC for the original Far Cry 3, but it had a lot of personality. The gameplay was simple but fun. The weapons felt good. The weapons were... most of them were a reference to other movies. I mean, the game was jam-packed with references from cartoons to movies to shows, all that stuff. It was there. If you were like a kid in those years, that was the game for you. Also, the soundtrack was pretty good. Just like in Metal Gear Rising also. I don't think I've mentioned it before, but the soundtracks in these two games are pretty fucking good. Another thing they have in common. So, Blood Dragon sounds like... I'm making it sound like it was perfect, but it wasn't, because... I mean, like all Ubisoft games, it was a bit repetitive in the end. It was pretty short because it didn't last very long. And probably its biggest flaw is that it didn't really have proper boss fights, especially the final boss fight. It didn't have a final boss fight. So So a sequel definitely could have improved, like a proper sequel, like a game, a full-on game made from scratch. So not just an expansion or a swap, a palette, an asset swap. Could have made the game justice. Also because the game ends up on a cliffhanger as well. So I think maybe a sequel was in the works, but I don't know what happened, like I said. So it's really a shame these two games never got a sequel, because they were games made for people who like games. People who just wanna have fun with games. Even though, I mean, the stories can have serious elements in them, but they are mostly fun games that don't take themselves overly serious. They don't try to lecture you, they just want to entertain you, and that's what gaming should be, in most cases. But in some cases, yeah, you can have more serious stories and all that, but I think in most cases, games should entertain. They should entertain you, make you think sometimes. Have a good gameplay loop, and for the most part, that's it, in my opinion. So it's really a shame neither of these two games got a sequel, and that shows like the industry, how fucked up the industry is, that these two games never got a sequel despite them selling relatively well. I know Metal Gear Rising sold more than 1 million, which, I mean, it wasn't really awesome, but it wasn't bad either, so they could have given it another try. Blood Dragon, I'm not sure. I still have yet to check. I have yet to check how much it sold. But, I mean, it was a fucking palette swap. So it's not like he needed to sell billions to recoup the costs. Even if it sold 500,000 copies, that's still pretty good for an asset swap that lasted 3 hours. So it's just Ubisoft being Ubisoft. But yeah, like, this is it for the video. I just wanted to remember these two games. Two of my favorite games from the last 10 years. And I also want to hear your opinion, like, what are your thoughts on these games? Did you play them? Did you enjoy them? Do you like them? And all that stuff. Because, I mean, Metal Gear Rising you can play on PC nowadays. Not on consoles, but on PC. And I think Blood Dragon is the same. You can play it on PC, but not on consoles. I'm not sure if it was re-released on PS4, but I have to check. If you have a PC, definitely try to pick them up, because they are very cheap. They run on pretty much any potato PC you may have, because they are old games. And they're very fun, very fun. They are products from a bygone era. They don't make games like this anymore. They just don't. So definitely recover them if you haven't played them back then. And they're always good for a replay if you're in the mood. So, and yeah. So, like I said, let me know your thoughts. Thanks for all the views, likes, comments, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.